Senator, great to have you with us. We're going to get into the big, beautiful bill, which I know you want to talk about in a second. I'll ask you a couple of questions about things that are playing out this week. Are you clear on where the president is on future arms shipments to Ukraine? There was an attempt at the Pentagon to slow them. The president said, I don't even know who made that decision. I'm going to keep them going. He said today more Patriot missile defense systems might go to Ukraine. Do you feel you know where things are heading on this? And are you comfortable with what you've heard so far? You know,
what I'm comfortable with is that President Trump and I are tired of the dying, that over 1 million people have died, and we want this war to end. I certainly understand that Mr. Putin has once again rejected any type of meaningful peace, and certainly I understand that we need to give more weapons, most likely to Ukraine, to try to force Putin to the table. I think we need to double down on our sanctions right now. As far as a day-to-day moment, I'm not on the committee of jurisdiction, right, but certainly I agree with President Trump on the goals here.
It sounds like you and the president have evolved a little bit on this, seeing more of Putin as less willing to do this and the need to help the Ukrainians gut it out for a while longer.
Yeah.
So, is that a fair characterization?
I think that's fair. I'm very frustrated we ever ended up here. This should have never happened. We could cry about that spilled milk. I just felt under the Biden administration is that we were going nowhere quickly, that he was not enforcing sanctions, that he was always a day late and $1 short. I think President Trump has pushed very hard for a peace agreement and frankly is just treading water himself right now.
Speaking of sanctions, as you know, Lindsey Graham, chairman of the Budget Committee, has a sanctions bill against Russia that would go straight at the energy sector. He says there's more than 80 senators. That means Republicans and Democrats on board. Are you on board? Are you waiting for the president to give you a green light to do that?
I've tried to give the president maximum flexibility to finish agreement. 2 or 3 weeks ago, I thought we were getting very, very close, so I held off. I think at this point, in this moment, if I had to vote right now, I would vote in favor of it.
You would?
I would.
Of those sanctions?
Yes.
That's an important thing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think that there's much more that we could do. These are the sanctions I asked President Biden to put on even before the war broke out, doubling down on the energy sector of the banking.
So if I hear you correctly, the Russian government better understand that the patience in the Republican Senate conference is wearing thin.
You know, absolutely. Again, we want the dying to stop. I think that NATO's made some mistakes going forward. I think that we need to look at it through Russia's eyes just a little bit. Much like the United States couldn't tolerate Russian missiles in Cuba, I think Russia feels like they cannot tolerate NATO that close to them as well. I think this was a self-induced error on NATO's part, but nevertheless, here we are today, and we're going to try to clean up the mess.
One other thing that happened this week. Are you satisfied with what you've heard from the Justice Department about Jeffrey Epstein?
You know, certainly, again, it's not something at the top of my list. You know, the folks back home are much more interested in this one big, beautiful bill. I think that they're interested in seeing the largest tax cut in history, that we've fixed crop insurance, that we're going to have the largest cut in spending by the federal government, that we're securing the border. That's what folks back home are concerned about. No one's asked me about Jeffrey Epstein in months.
Interesting. Others on the social media sphere have been talking about it quite a bit this week. Back to the big, beautiful bill, as it is legislatively known. There's a conversation, you've heard it on the Senate floor. Plenty of Democrats have said, and they keep backing up, saying this is going to happen. Rural hospitals are going to be closed. People are going to be knocked off care. People are going to, because they're knocked off care, require emergency care, which is going to filter through the entire system, raising premiums for people who are not even on Medicare or Medicaid. You don't think any of that's going to happen, do you?
So, Major, I think we just see the world a lot differently. Look, I'm the only member of Congress that's actually ran a rural hospital.
Right.
For 25 years, I delivered a baby most every day of my life.
More than 5,000, I remember.
More than 5,000, and half of those were on Medicaid. 20% didn't have a nickel to their name, but we took care of everybody. So I ran the hospital, oversaw 3 health departments. I've seen rural hospitals from all the directions. I think we have to agree right now that the status quo is not working, that Medicaid is not solving this problem. There's so many things are wrong. What's wrong with rural hospitals right now is 2 things. Number one, those counties have lost population. Maybe 50% of their population is gone. And the second thing is just a horrible economy. The last 4 years, we had a horrible agriculture economy. Last year, the biggest drop in net farm income in my lifetime. Now, fortunately, things are looking better right now, but those hospitals are a reflection of their local economy. They don't drive the economy, they're a reflection of it. So when you lose your population, when you lose your economy, they're going to struggle. Think about this. There's 1,400 critical access hospitals across the country. 60% of them are losing money right now. 60% of the 1,400 critical access hospitals are losing money right now. We've not done anything different, right? To the tune of $600,000 a year is what they're losing right now. Medicaid is not working. Rural hospitals depend upon Medicare, not so much on Medicaid. So the status quo is not working. We have to figure out something different.
And this bill will not harm or accelerate or exacerbate the problem you just statistically described.
I think this bill will help solve it. It's going to be a bridge to the future. Look,
Walk me through that.
Yeah, so only 5% of Medicaid spending goes to rural hospitals.
Okay.
It's a very, very small amount. So what I've fought for, and really this goes back to sitting down with Dr. Oz on New Year's Eve saying, what are we going to do for rural America? And I said, we need a fund set up for rural hospitals and for community health centers as well. When working with MAHA, with Secretary Kennedy, one of my 3 pillars is meaningful, affordable access to health care. So really, we got to go to primary care to really solve this problem. In the Medicaid population, you think about 90% of the spend is on 6 or 7 chronic diseases: heart disease, hypertension, obesity, diabetes, cancer, or I'm missing Alzheimer's and depression. We've got to get ahead of those. My vision is to beef up the community health centers and give them meaningful primary care. Just because you have Medicaid doesn't mean you have access to care. A fourth of physicians do not accept Medicaid.
Reimbursements are too low.
And at least another group of that are, through their schedule, delay the care for those people well. They'll give you an appointment, but 6 months from now. So my patient I'm seeing in the ER with chest pain or with a neurological problem, I can't get her into a specialist for 6 months because she has Medicaid. So we need something besides Medicaid. Medicaid's the most broken system. We've seen it grow and grow. We want to protect Medicaid. We want to preserve it. We want to make it better.
Talk to my audience about how this $50 billion set aside for rural hospitals will work. What does that look like? How does that even function?
Yeah, I think that we're going to have to depend upon CMS to get it right.
Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services.
Right. So this would be Dr. Oz and his team, and we've been having these discussions again for 6 months. Where is the biggest need at? And I think it'll be a challenge, but it's certainly hard for Congress to micromanage that. But I have confidence in Dr. Oz and his team that he's going to be able to put their finger in the dikes. But long term, we have to work on the rural economies, things like making sure they have high-speed internet and healthy water, all those things you need, grocery stores and banks and schools. What's going to keep a rural hospital alive is that strong community, and then address these chronic diseases as well.
So if I have you back here in the conversation corner, as I call it, a year from now,
Okay.
You're confident that a rural hospital that wasn't going to close already will not close as a result of this bill, or that people who had care will not be dislodged from care as a direct result of this now law?
I think those are 2 different questions.
Okay.
I do think that our bill is going to help rural hospitals and rural primary care. The only people that are going to lose Medicaid are people that are healthy and don't want to work. Think about this. We have 7 million healthy American men across the country who aren't working right now. 7 million. And we have almost 8 million jobs. The number of healthy people.
Job openings.
Job openings. I got to get ahead of myself here and get excited about this because I can see the solution. I see the solution, Major, right before our eyes. Think about this. That 20 years ago, there was only 7 million healthy people on Medicaid. Today, there's 34 million healthy people on Medicaid. It's went from 7 to 34 million healthy people. Look, we want to preserve Medicaid for those who need it the most. We're not going to touch Medicaid for senior citizens, for people on disabilities, for pregnant women, for moms, for children. So we have to protect it for them. Meanwhile, the only people in Kansas that are going to lose Medicaid are ones that are healthy and refusing to work. And all we're asking for is 20 hours a week, whether it's volunteering or whether it's work or going to school. So I just think giving a person a job brings dignity. It brings purpose to life. It's the right thing to do. We talked about chronic diseases, depression. Having a job really helps people with depression. It gives them meaning and purpose in life.
I've read that you have said about the law just signed by the president that there was within it a mini farm bill.
Yeah.
What happened? What's in it that's going to address farmers in Kansas and across the country? And will it address what I hear persistently, which is tariffs may not have showed up in prices at the grocery store, but they are filtering through the farm economy?
Yeah. We did basically do a farm bill within this bill. And this is part of how do we save those rural hospitals is make the ag economy strong again. So crop insurance is the backbone of every farm bill. Crop insurance is what allows us when that farmer gets held out. We're finishing up wheat harvest right now in Kansas. They get held out and crop insurance allows them to plant next year's crop. There's something called reference prices and Title I's for when there's dry years and the yields are down as well. A big part of this, though, is also some tax issues. So we doubled the death tax exemption.
Otherwise known as the estate tax exemption.
Yeah, the death tax exemption, what they call it back home. And there's a pass-through tax called a 199A, which is important to farmers, especially if they're in a co-op. But we also allow bonus depreciation and writing off interest. So the average farmer in Kansas has $1 million operation loan. He goes and buys $1 million combine, and he gets to write that off over a year's time, along with the interest for it as well. So this is going to help those family farms stay in the family. This is one of the greatest solutions I've seen for rural America in my lifetime. The last thing I would talk about that we did in this bill and worked with President Trump on this idea since before the election is a 45Z tax credit, which is going to allow us to take corn and sorghum and soybeans and turn it into jet fuel. So I'm excited about that. That market could be much bigger than the ethanol market.
Yeah, I've heard you say that. Bigger than the ethanol market. Yeah. Every time I go to Iowa, I hear about the ethanol market. It can be bigger than this.
Absolutely. The opportunity to make all the jet fuel from commodities is probably maybe 5 to 10 times bigger than the ethanol market.
When you hear the president, as I'm sure your ears have picked up, say that there needs to be some change, and he's not exactly sure what the change will be, in current immigration enforcement that protects farm workers and the hospitality industry. But let's talk about farm workers. It's a bigger issue in my home state of California than Kansas, but I'm sure you have thoughts on it. Do you want the president to carve out some exemptions there for that economy?
Look, no amnesty. I'm just going to start with that. Full stop, no amnesty. The great thing is we can even have this conversation. A year ago, I couldn't even talk about fixing this problem because our borders were not secure. But now that our borders are secure, drug crime is going down, fentanyl poisonings are going down as well, we're able to have this conversation. I'm going to never get ahead of the president. I'm going to continue to encourage him to prioritize these 400,000 violent, illegal aliens that are in this country. And I think that's really a full-time job for everybody. We've got an ICE, and by the way, this bill doubles the number of ICE removal agents for the next 4 years as well, and increases the retention beds. It's very expensive to remove these people. So I would encourage him to continue to focus on that. And then Congress needs a long-term solution. It was part of, I thought, a pretty good solution back in 2018. We called it a good lat bill. But anybody that was here illegally needed to go out of the country and start over again.
Even if you were a farm worker.
Yes, absolutely. No one's going to get amnesty. But those farm workers, what we did in that particular bill is we said, if you're employed and your employer will vouch for you and you can pass the criminal background test, those types of things, that we would then process you and give you a chance to come back in legally.
For the moment, you're going to leave it to the discretion of the president to decide how much or where to carve out various industries from some of the more aggressive enforcement actions.
Yeah. I don't know that I have much of a choice.
But you probably don't.
But certainly I'm very willing to have that discussion to solve the problem. And again, the emphasis to me, the president campaigned on securing the border. That was his main campaign promise. And by gosh, he's done it. But he's going to run out of funding. So I'm glad we have the funding in the bill to help secure that border for the next 4 years, 2,000 miles of barrier walls. More technology is going to go in there as well. But now we can have the discussion again. I didn't think we'd have this discussion until year 3 of Trump 47, but we're having it now. And I think that the public's going to trust President Trump. When he says that this is a good deal, when he says this plan is not amnesty, then I think we got a chance to finish it. What stopped us from getting it done before, the people on the left said we were giving Trump too much for the border, and the people on the right said we were given too much as far as allowing people to go outside and come back in. So we lost our far left and right. I think President Trump's leadership can get us somewhere.
Thought experiment. Last question.
Okay.
Imagine you're holding a 3x5 card, and you're going to write down on that 3x5 card the biggest things you think matter and will matter for a long time in the first 6 months of the Trump presidency 2.0. What would they be?
Yeah, I think securing our border, making our families safer again, rolling back regulations, I do think that this one big, beautiful bill is absolutely transformational, the start of a new golden era of prosperity and security.
Is there anything, if you were to turn that 3x5 card over, you would say needs to be addressed that hasn't been gotten to yet?
Oh, I'm sure there is. The cost of health care. I came here to fix the cost of health care. We have to make it more transparent. We have to have more HAs, turn patients back into consumers.
What's a HA?
Healthcare savings accounts,
Okay.
where we give you, let you use your money to buy things with tax dollars within healthcare as well, and promote innovation. I think we need to do more rolling back regulations. But really, I'm up here to fix healthcare, among other things. I think that our military is in much better shape today. Everyone's got to hop in their stuff. It's a new day. It is absolutely so fun to be at the White House with the airmen and women from Whiteman Air Force Base who are part of this attack that we did on Iran nuclear weapons, and just to see them so proud. And that my dad and brother are both Air Force guys, and their buttons are just busting at the chest. They're so proud of what they accomplished there. So it's a new era. We did it really quickly. We did a telephone town hall, 2 of them yesterday. 5,000 Kansans. The first one was a group of seniors. The second group, 5,000 people that live in rural Kansas. 80% of them said America's going in the right direction. I am so proud to have turned this country around to going the right direction here in just 6 months.
Roger Marshall, it's been a pleasure, sir.
Good to see you.
Thank you. You're always welcome here. Thanks for coming back.
You bet.